Holidaymakers have been rushing to return to the UK today after the government announced late last night that France, the Netherlands and a number of other popular destinations would be put back on the government's quarantine list.
And that's because we've absolutely worked so hard to make sure that we're keeping our numbers down here. We can't afford to re-import those cases from elsewhere.
An estimated 500,000 people will now be required to self-isolate for 2 weeks unless they arrive back in the UK before 4 a.m. on Saturday. The looming deadline has meant a race to the border for many who are hoping to get back before the quarantine kicks in.
It just seems completely disorganised, it just seems utterly ridiculous, but hey, I've driven for 11 hours with breaks, so getting back to make sure that I don't have to self-isolate. That's it, really. When I heard the news yesterday, I was shocked, I think is the short answer. I looked on it, read it again, and then the next bit that I found really confusing is why it started at Saturday at 4 a.m. I mean, that made no sense, because surely if it's bad, you start it now rather than in a couple of days' time at 4 a.m.
Michael Smallwood of Kent has cut his camping holiday short in the hope he can get back to the UK in time to beat the deadline.
We heard about the announcement last night and cannot get through to P&O either online or by telephone. So I've come here to Calais Port to see if we can have our flexi tickets reallocated in order to get back to the UK before the cut-off time of 4 a.m.
He's keen to avoid having to take 2 weeks off work to self-isolate.
It is of concern. I'm self-employed and would stand to lose a certain amount of income. It would be irretrievable.
We left early. It's a 13-hour drive from Antibes to Calais. So we left early yesterday evening and we managed to get a hotel room, and we're driving now, hopefully getting to Calais in about 3 o'clock. I've been looking at the cases quite closely on the French government website, and it became apparent, I think, about a week ago that this was likely to happen about today. So we sort of prepared ourselves. I didn't particularly want to do a straight 14-hour drive today, so we came up yesterday afternoon to sort of middle of France.
When we heard the news late last night, we changed our plans and decided to come straight home to miss the quarantine. We've been camping in south of France where there's so few people. We've seen less people in the last week in France than we would in the UK, so no, we don't feel particularly scared to it. No.
I chose to travel today to avoid the quarantine, and I'm going to go spend a couple of days with my family in the UK. A lot of people are traveling, they are in contact with a lot of people, I'm sure not wearing masks, so it's not a bad idea, but they're not very consistent with their messaging, so I think that's probably confusing for most people.
The new quarantine measures are a further blow to the travel industry, still reeling from an unprecedented drop in passenger numbers.
During the summer season is where carriers make most of their money, so it's a really difficult time for the sector, which is why we're looking at things like, can we move on to a subnational basis for quarantine, be a little bit more flexible when it comes to quarantine to stop the start and go, and testing. Can we do much more with testing to enable us to be a bit more flexible with alternatives to quarantine going forward?
But Transport Secretary Grant Shapps last night told reporters the measures were necessary if the UK was to keep its infection rate down.
It does, I'm afraid, mean that people, when they return to the UK, if that is after 4 a.m. on Saturday morning, it does mean that they would need to quarantine for 14 days. And that is a requirement by law. People will be required to follow that. And that's to make sure that we protect the incredibly hard work people have done in the United Kingdom to get our numbers down. We've seen the numbers starting to rise, and we want to make sure that we keep those suppressed for everybody.